A stunning young archaeologist vanishes into a hidden tomb deep in the American wilderness, only to awaken in a forgotten civilization from over 2,000 years ago. Trapped in a world of ancient gods, rival kingdoms, and deadly secrets, she's hunted by a dark, skull-faced entity with glowing eyes. Terrified, disoriented, she flees through sacred jungles and collapsing temples. Her only hope, a mysterious warrior sworn to protect the innocent. As powers collide and empires crumble, the line between myth and reality disappears. Who is she in their prophecy? Why does the creature want her? And can she survive the curse of a world lost in time? I used to believe camping alone could help clear my head. Last fall, I took a solo trip into the mountains of New Mexico, carrying my research journals and a quiet hope to find something ancient. My name is Hazel. I'm 24, work in archaeology, and I've always been drawn to forgotten places. A week into my hike, I stumbled upon a cave hidden behind a fallen tree. The symbols etched on its stone walls didn't match anything modern. They felt older, raw, alive. 3 steps inside, the ground shook. Then light, not from the sun, but deep blue and humming. My chest tightened. The air felt thick, like it was watching me. When I opened my eyes again, the forest was gone. The air was hotter, the sky hazier. Stone towers stood in the distance. People dressed in skins and gold moved through open markets. I wasn't in the 21st century anymore. I had no clue where or when I was, but something deep in me said this wasn't a dream. I was taken in by a woman named Izel. Her voice was soft, but her eyes held weight. She called this land Axomel, a city once buried in myths. I told her my name, but not the truth. She nodded like she knew anyway. One night I heard whispers outside the hut. A man walked into the firelight. He was tall, wearing dark, draped robes. His skin looked stretched, unnatural. No nose, no eyes, just bone. They called him Vayem. He wasn't human. The air shifted when he moved, like light bent around him. And those who looked at him too long forgot who they were. He wanted me, but not for reasons I understood. Izel introduced me to a warrior named Kale. He didn't talk much, but when he did, it was always with purpose. He told me Vayem was a guardian of the underworld, broken free from his prison centuries ago, and I, somehow, had triggered something by entering the tomb. Kale and I tried to flee the city under nightfall, but Vayem was fast. Shadows bent to his will. At one point he reached me. His hand brushed my arm. Ice spread through my veins. Kale dragged me away. We ran into the jungle until we collapsed. The stars here were wrong. I knew then this world wasn't just old, it was outside of time. We were hunted for days. Vayem always near, never rushing. He didn't need to. One afternoon we reached a ruined temple. Inside, carvings told a story of a foreign girl crossing realms and bringing either salvation or ruin. The final carving? A figure that looked like me, facing Vayem alone. I felt the ground tremble again. My vision blurred. I reached for Keel, but everything twisted. I woke up in my tent. Cold sweat, mud on my boots, a carved stone clutched in my hand. It bore a single word in ancient script, Axomel. I never told anyone, but I still hear his voice in my sleep. Not loud, just breathing, just waiting. It wasn't the dust or the silence that unsettled me. It was how still the jungle became the moment I stepped into that hollow chamber, buried beneath centuries of stone and forgotten earth. No birds, no breeze. Just my breath and the slow creak of my boots against the soil of something not meant to be found. I should have left when I saw the carvings, eyes without pupils, flames dancing over rivers, a figure with a jaw split in two, as if always screaming but never making a sound. But I was curious, and curiosity is a currency you can't refund once it's spent. They called me Haley. My research team set up camp a few miles from an unmarked ruin near Veracruz. Our goal was to study the burial structures of pre-classical civilizations. That night, after a short nap, I wandered off alone with my field journal. That's when I found the sunken stairs. 3 steps down, and the light faded. 10 steps in, the world changed. The first thing I noticed was the cold, not normal cold. It wrapped around my bones and made my heart beat slower. Then came the noise. A deep hum that didn't come from outside but vibrated through my chest, like a forgotten chant whispered by stone walls. When I touched the symbol etched into the altar, everything collapsed. The room twisted. The air turned thick. My vision shattered like glass. I fell. And when I woke up, I was not in my time. Everything smelled of smoke and clay. The jungle was louder now, but not modern. The air buzzed with life and tension. Warriors ran past in armor made of bone and feathers. Great cities loomed under blood-orange skies. I was still in the same jungle, but the world had gone backward. People stared, some bowed, some fled. I wandered, dazed, until I met her, Nia. She looked young but spoke like someone born in storms. She said I was the chosen one. I didn't believe her, until I saw him. He stood in the center of the plaza that night, skin ashy gray, two green eyes glowing like fire underwater, no nose, no lips, just an ancient skull masked in twisted flesh. They called him the Hollow. He didn't walk, he glided, he didn't talk. He hissed through his teeth, and everyone obeyed. I was frozen, his eyes locked on mine, and I ran. For days I moved from village to village, hiding. Nia stayed with me, so did her brother Jalen, strong, skeptical, protective. He didn't trust me, but he never left my side, not even when the sky cracked open and the Hollow returned. We were caught near the river. No one should have survived, but someone did. A man cloaked in copper and obsidian, face hidden, moved like a storm. They called him Karo. No tribe, no home, only one purpose: protect the ancient line. Protect me. He threw a handful of dust into the air and the creature shrieked, vanishing into the wind like smoke. That night, around the fire, Jalen finally asked what I was. I didn't know. I only knew I didn't belong. And that thing would never stop hunting me. Dreams came, visions, a temple crumbling into sand, my name carved onto stones that hadn't yet been shaped. I wasn't supposed to find that tomb. It was supposed to find me. The Hollow grew stronger. He whispered to the trees. Shadows stretched longer than their sources. Every step we took felt heavier. And then we arrived at the Forgotten City, the place where time cracked. It was hidden beneath vines and silence. Statues of creatures part man, part sky. Karo said the only way to break the cycle was to stand in the eye of it. I was terrified, but I was tired of running. Inside the central chamber, the wind didn't move, the fire didn't flicker, and the Hollow was already there. But something had changed. He looked afraid. Karo stepped forward, shielding me. Jalen held the blade carved from volcanic stone, and I raised my hand. I spoke the words I didn't know I knew. The symbols on the walls began to glow, the floor opened, and the Hollow screamed for the first time, not in anger, but in fear. When I woke, I was back. The jungle was quiet. My journal sat on the altar. No footsteps, no feathers, just trees and heat. I told no one, but sometimes in dreams, I still hear him, and I wonder if I brought something back with me. I thought coming back would mean peace, quiet, normal things like checking my phone, pouring cereal, listening to traffic, but there's no peace when time spits you out with something still clinging to your name. It stayed silent the first few weeks, but silence can be louder than sound. I'd hear creaks in corners that hadn't existed before. The air felt thicker in my apartment, like something invisible was pressing gently against the walls. My reflection moved slower than me once. That was when I stopped brushing my teeth at night. I kept the necklace Nia gave me, though I hid it in a drawer under receipts and socks. Every time I touched it, I felt the pulse of something buried, not dead, just quiet. Karo warned me in the jungle, it follows belief. I didn't understand then. I do now. I saw Jalen last night. Not really him, but a version. I was at the museum, standing in front of a mural I hadn't remembered painting. A man passed by, tall, with eyes too familiar. He glanced at me, paused, then vanished into the crowd like steam. My breath caught. I didn't chase him. The dreams returned a week later. Cities crumbling, hands reaching from stone. I stood inside a circle of fire and heard my own voice echo back in a language I never learned. It wasn't a dream. I knew that kind of fear. I'd felt it once, in the underworld city they never marked on any map. Then came Elise. She worked nights in restoration, cataloging old fragments from expeditions. We met by accident, but it felt arranged. She'd seen the same glyphs in a ruin unearthed 2 months ago, in a country no one lived in anymore. We exchanged notes. That was the first mistake. Her hands started shaking when she saw the symbol etched on the inside of my journal. 3 lines circling a spiral broken at the top. She said she'd seen it in a dream. Then she said it had followed her into waking life. I didn't ask more. I didn't want to hear what I already knew. The lights at her building flickered the next day. Elise didn't show up to work after that. I called. No answer. So I went. Her apartment door was open. Her bag was on the floor, keys still hooked to the side. Nothing broken, just wrong. The windows were covered with blankets, the walls scribbled with symbols that pulsed faintly when I looked too long. I left without touching anything. The next night, I found her standing in my hallway. She looked normal, but her eyes didn't blink when the hallway light flickered. Her voice was steady but hollow, like someone reading a script written by a stranger. She said the doorway was weakening, that it remembered me. I didn't sleep after that. The smell came first, earth and ash like the ruins, but in my living room. My television turned on by itself, static buzzing loud, then soft, then off. I packed a bag. I didn't care where I was going, only that it was away. But I couldn't leave. Every route I took circled me back to the museum. The streets bent in ways they shouldn't. My GPS looped endlessly. I gave in and walked inside. There was a new exhibit, not officially, not listed. Just a corridor with dim lights and artifacts labeled in no language I could read. In the center stood a stone monolith, my name carved at the bottom. I reached out, it pulsed under my palm, and then I saw her, Nia, clearer than a memory but hazier than real. She said time hadn't sealed properly, that I'd opened something with no exit. The hollow was searching again, but not for me, for whoever still remembered, Elise. I tried to warn her. I called, emailed, waited outside her apartment. No response. I finally left the necklace outside her door. That night, I felt it again. The stillness, the cold pressing against the windows. I closed the blinds and waited. I haven't seen Elise since. They replaced the hallway carpet last week. Said it was water damage. But I saw the pattern underneath, barely visible. 3 lines circling a spiral, broken at the top. People ask if I'm okay. I say yes. I laugh. I go out. But I never walk near mirrors after dark. I never keep the lights off in 2 rooms at once, and I never ever look at old stone. Because sometimes, I still hear the humming, and when I blink, I'm not always sure I opened my eyes in the same world I closed them in. I don't keep clocks anymore. There's something about hearing seconds tick that reminds me time isn't always moving forward. Sometimes it slips. I've watched hours loop, watched lights flicker in the same pattern every night at 2:17. Alon noticed it too. He lives 2 floors above, works remote, rarely sleeps. We talked once about the smell, wet stone and dust, in the stairwell. I thought maybe it was just an old building thing. But when he said he saw the hallway stretch, I knew it wasn't just me. That week, I found another mural in my sketchbook. I don't remember drawing it. It shows a door, suspended midair, and people walking through it without touching the ground. Their faces are smudged. One of them looks like Elise. She hasn't called. Her apartment's still dark. Jasper came by the gallery to pick up prints. He's new, paints mostly industrial decay. Said something strange as he flipped through a canvas. Some buildings hum when no one's looking. That word again, hum. Like what I hear when the lights buzz at night. I asked him if he's felt pressure in the air lately, like just before a storm but without the weather. He nodded once, slow, said he thought it was a migraine thing. I didn't say more. The elevator mirrors have changed. My reflection used to stare back at me. Now it glances sideways, like listening to something I can't hear. I don't use elevators anymore. Ava visited last Sunday. She teaches folklore at the university. We met through Nia, years ago. She asked about the expedition again, the one in Peru. I gave her the same vague version, but then she showed me a rubbing from an artifact, glyphs identical to what was carved in that hidden chamber. Ones we swore never made public. She found them in a box labeled unassigned. They weren't supposed to exist. That night, I couldn't sleep. Shadows moved slower than they should. I heard whispering behind the kitchen wall. I don't share a wall with anyone. The water from the tap tastes metallic now. I boil it twice. Ava called me the next morning. She said there's an ancient belief across multiple cultures, South America, Northern Africa, even parts of the Arctic, about places that aren't where they appear to be. Anchored by memory, activated by recognition. Once you see them, they see you. That word again, recognition. I tried to forget, tried not to sketch, not to write, but my hand moves on its own sometimes. The door keeps showing up, always the same shape, always ajar. 3 nights ago, Alon knocked on my door. He looked pale, damp with sweat, said something came through the wall in his apartment. Not a person, not solid, just noise and cold. I believed him. I shouldn't have opened the door, but I did. Now the plants on my windowsill are dying. even the fake ones. I walked to the river this morning, hoping to feel normal. There's something steady about moving water, but when I blinked, the bridge across looked wrong, longer than it used to be. Empty, despite the usual rush hour. A man stood in the middle of it, didn't move, just watched. I turned around. Back in the apartment, I unplugged everything. No internet, no lights, sat in the dark with a notebook, hoping silence might push it away. That's when I saw my name etched into the wood under the table. Same spiral, same lines circling it. Only now, it's cracked through the center. I can't remember if I carved it. I tried reaching Ava again. Her number gives a disconnected tone. I went to the university. They said she's on leave, indefinite. No forwarding info. Her office door had salt spilled across the floor in a perfect ring. I haven't touched the necklace since Elise vanished, but I know where it is. Wrapped in a scarf, bottom of my closet. Still warm, even in the dark. Tonight, the air shifted. My walls feel further apart. The hallway stretched again. I watched a shape move behind the peephole, but no one knocked. I left a note under Alan's door. Just a drawing, the symbol. I don't know if he'll understand it or if it's already too late. There are new markings on my ceiling now. They glow when I close my eyes. The hallway is silent now, but it doesn't feel empty. There's a weight in the stillness, like someone's holding their breath just out of view. I haven't turned on the lights in 3 days. The dark feels more honest. Yesterday I saw a note under my door. No handwriting, just a charcoal drawing. A staircase leading down into something that looks like roots. I thought it might be from Alan, but his apartment door has been cracked open since Tuesday. No movement. His cat's been meowing for food. I didn't go in. The woman next door, Camille, knocked around noon. She said she was going through old tenant records. She's a property lawyer. Showed me something strange. There's no listed resident in Unit 9B for the past 7 years, but lights flicker under that door every night. She asked if I'd ever heard anything from that apartment. I lied. That evening, I sat by the window. Cars passed, people walked, but nothing sounded right. The world outside seemed paused, like a stage between scenes. And then I saw Jude across the street. He moved like he was in water. Slow, deliberate. His coat was turned inside out. His eyes didn't blink. When I opened the window to call out, he vanished behind the alley wall. I haven't heard from him since last month. Inside, the walls hum now. Not constant, but enough to catch, like low breathing in another room. The hum's coming from behind the closet. I moved the shelf. There's a thin crack along the drywall. Light seeps through it, soft and blue. I touched it. It was warm. My phone won't hold a charge. I plug it in, but the battery icon loops. Ava's contact is gone. Even her old messages are scrambled. One has only a word, recognize. I stopped drawing last night. My hands wouldn't move right. I tried sketching the door again, but the pencil broke. I picked up another. It broke too. Then I heard footsteps overhead. Steady, slow. I live on the top floor. I called Camille. She didn't pick up. I knocked, but her unit was silent. I slipped a note under her door, just the drawing of the staircase. I needed someone else to see it, to confirm I'm not folding into myself. Around 3 a.m., the crack in the closet widened. The light shifted, pulsed. I sat in bed, not blinking, not breathing. Then the hum stopped. That was worse. This morning I walked past Alan's apartment. The door was fully open. All the furniture's gone. Walls bare. But on the floor, in the dust, someone had drawn that spiral again. The same shape from Peru. The same symbol on Elisa's necklace. I took a photo. The image corrupted. I thought about leaving. I packed a small bag, but the elevator's mirror had a handprint in it, pressed from the inside. I walked down 12 flights. When I reached the lobby, it was still dark outside, even though it was noon. Jude's painting appeared in the gallery window overnight. He never submitted it. The canvas is thick with black and cobalt, but under angled light, a shape emerges. The door, the staircase, and someone standing at the bottom. It looks like me. I didn't go in. Back upstairs, I heard Camille's voice, muffled, urgent. Coming from inside my closet, I froze. Then silence. I turned on every light, sat in the kitchen, waited. Around 2:17, the shadows stretched. I swear I saw them form another door. This one was open. Just a sliver. Tomorrow I'll move the shelf again. But not tonight. I moved the shelf this morning. The crack was wider than before, jagged along the edges like it had been torn from the inside. The light wasn't blue anymore. It had shifted to a dull amber, like something old was burning far away. Camille still hasn't answered her door. I knocked twice, listened, then slipped another drawing underneath. This one was rougher, done in pen. The hallway, the closet, the figure at the end of the staircase. I signed it, not sure why. At the coffee shop, Marcus asked if I was okay. I told him I hadn't been sleeping. He offered to walk me home. I said no, but later, I wished I hadn't. He was the last person I saw today. Back at the apartment, the lights were on. I hadn't left them that way. The hum was back too, deeper this time, like it had settled into the walls. When I pressed my hand against the drywall, it pulsed once, then stopped. I lit a candle in the kitchen. No power outage, but the electricity felt wrong. Every appliance blinked out of sync. The microwave flashed 3:33 even though it was almost 6. The stove clicked but didn't turn on. I called Brielle. She said she was coming over. She never arrived. Her last text was just a voice memo, 7 seconds of static. I played it twice, then deleted it. The sound stayed in the room longer than it should have. Later I opened the closet. Not the shelf this time, just the door. The air inside was colder than before. I stepped in, held my breath, touched the crack. It crumbled a little beneath my fingers. Dust spilled out, dark and fine like ashes. From inside I could hear my apartment, the ticking clock, the faint street noise, but something was missing. My own reflection. The mirror across from the kitchen didn't show me anymore. Just the room behind me, still, unchanged but wrong. Marcus called around 9. He said he had a weird dream about my building. He described a staircase under the floor. I asked him if he'd ever seen it before. He paused, then hung up. The hallway outside felt too long tonight. I swear it was shorter this morning. The lights flicker more often now. I passed Elise's old apartment. She's been gone 2 years, but I heard her humming through the door. The same song she used to sing on laundry days. I didn't stop. There's something familiar about the hum. Not the sound, but the rhythm. I think it matches my heartbeat. When I hold my wrist near the wall, it sinks, like it's listening, like it knows. I found a key under my pillow, not one I've seen before. Heavy bronze, with a spiral carved at the end. I didn't touch it for a while, just stared. Then wrapped it in an old t-shirt and put it in the freezer. I sleep on the couch now, closer to the door. The bedroom feels too still. Last night, I dreamt I opened the crack. Behind it, a staircase spiraled down, just like the drawings. But the walls breathed, and at the bottom, something whispered my name. I woke up before I saw it. Or maybe I didn't. I checked the freezer this morning. The key was gone. In its place, a single slip of paper, damp from the frost. It read, "Already inside."